Hi, welcome back to the Postpartum Coach Podcast. If you're brand new here, it is so good to have you. My name is Lizzie Langston. I'm a mama of 4 kids. I just had a baby this last year, my 4th baby. And yeah, my kids are anywhere from 9 to 6, and I am married. And my passion is to empower women and to help them understand how they are actually also victims of a system that very much overlooks the postpartum time frame and that undervalues all that a mother goes through, and even just the nurturing role that women often end up playing. Nurturing in general is something that our society undervalues, and I would say birthing a child and keeping it alive is a huge part of nurturing, not to mention your physical recovery. So one of my passions is to help you understand how it's not just your fault that you're not feeling well, and it's not just that you're broken, that there's a lot of factors that are actually contributing to how you might be feeling in this postpartum rut time, and that there's actually so much that you can do and also know and understand. Knowing and understanding is step one, and then doing. But there's so much knowledge that I can empower you with to pull yourself up, not just by the bootstraps and kind of invalidate your emotions and, have this to deal with later because it'll come up later if you don't deal with it, but actually really get to the root cause. So that was a really long way to say that I love helping women get to the root cause of their, the rut that they're in, or the way they're not feeling like themselves postpartum. So if you're new to the show, make sure that you like or subscribe if you're finding us on YouTube. If you are on the podcast, follow the podcast. Click follow if you're on Apple Podcasts. And I would so appreciate if, you get value out of this episode or any other episodes, just leave us a quick review. Us being me, like it's just me, friends. So from one mom to another, if you want to help contribute to my business and, tell the algorithm that you think I'm doing a great job so that it can show more women this podcast, then I would so appreciate a written review on Apple Podcasts. Okay, so we're going to dive in, and just so you know, if you like any of this and you want more help, you can always go to LizzieLangston.com/work with me, and I have more resources for you, including a coaching membership for postpartum women. So all of that will be in the show notes. Okay, so is my postpartum depression is my postpartum depression or anxiety or irritability or rage essentially is the hit that my mental health has been taking since recovering from having my baby? And it doesn't matter, by the way, if you're 6 months, 6 weeks, or 6 years postpartum. Is my mental health as a nurturer and helper and bringer of life to this child going to negatively impact them? And my short answer is yes and no, and I want to explain that. But before I further explain it, and I do want to give you peace of mind, so I am going to give you a couple tips of ways that you can help mitigate any negative impact that your state of mental well-being could have. And I know that that's probably sad and you're probably feeling guilty, but I really need you to understand, mama, that, it's like you are also a victim. So if you're like, oh, my poor baby deserves like such a good start to life, and here I am, I'm not able to just like really show up the way I want to. I get that, and I love your heart, and it's in such a beautiful place. And postpartum is a time where your actual best strategy, and I'm going to tell you why and explain this, but your best strategy is actually focusing on yourself. That doesn't mean you're going to neglect your child. Obviously, make sure your child is fed, safe, taken care of, okay? And this is a time where you need to go against what the system has raised us to do, which is stay in line, don't have a lot of needs, take care of the needs of others more than anything. And you're going to need to take care of your own needs. And you're going to really need to get to the heart and the root of why you're not feeling well. Because first of all, you deserve to feel better. Second of all, that will be the best way to not just feel better and get yourself out of this so that your baby can have the mom that you want to be, but also to make sure that you stay resilient and that you're not as vulnerable to this ever happening in this intensity like it is right now, again. So even after other babies. And so you don't have to live with that fear of this happening again. So I'm going to go into all that. I'm going to unpack it one step at a time. I'm going to take you on a little walk. We're going to kind of hold hands. So definitely cozy up. If it's wintertime, grab a coffee or an herbal tea or something you love to sip on. If it's summertime, get yourself a little, I don't know, soda pop or a cold popsicle, because I want to take you through a little journey of understanding a little bit better why you're feeling this way so that you can feel more empowered to feel better and be the mom you want to be. And also so that I do care about your baby, but I mostly care about you, and I care about empowering you with knowledge. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive in. My guess is that if you're asking this question, right, if this is on your heart, then there's a fear. If you're asking, is my mental health affecting my baby? Then number one, you're probably not feeling quite like yourself. And number two, you're probably afraid of a negative outcome for your child. And you want to be emotionally available and all that good stuff we just talked about. And like I told you, I will give you tips. I want to put your mind at ease. But first, to ease your fears, we need to zoom out a bit and to empower you so that you can actually create the change and just solve the problem and not be sitting in this fear. Like, let's just take care of it all. Let's just teach you how to get out of it, and I'll give you some tips to help your baby. So here's what I want you to imagine. Okay, let's pretend I was like your mentor for a minute. We're sitting on your couch. There's a crackling little fire. It's so lovely. I want you to imagine, you can even close your eyes if you want. Imagine a society where men and women were not just both equally valued, but where all employment and chances to contribute financially to the family, and specifically chances to just be supported in living your desires and your dreams of how you want to express your creativity in the world, not just inside of the home, but also outside of it, that was all equally available. Imagine that jobs and work environments prioritized the family just as much as actual families who were having kids together were prioritizing families. And that jobs were not just 9 to 5, but were genuinely family friendly. The very skim surface are, right? But I'm talking about in this hypothetical place, what if all workplaces were just so flexible with people who were parents, like they just knew and assumed that their their employees were parents. And so they created a workplace that was extremely supportive to men, women, or whatever genders were in this family unit. And so two people who wanted to come together and bring children into the world or adopt children or have children, right, and be in a family would be fully supported. Financially, they would have opportunities, both of them, if they wanted to. It would be balanced, and there would be shared responsibility in the workplace and at home. Now, if one of the people in the relationship wanted to stay home and just be with the kids while the other one wanted to just provide and they wanted to sort of split like that and like divide and conquer kind of a thing, they could. But if they both wanted to be working professionally, then those jobs would have amazing paternity and maternity leave and would maybe even offer a stipend for childcare. Like, just imagine a career path that was extremely supportive to having a family and a society that rewarded companies on a big meta government level for being that way. Okay, now a little reality check. Now imagine that all of the models are divide and conquer. One person goes and works, at least during postpartum, because most of the time, one person may still be working while one is recovering from having the baby, right? So now imagine postpartum, we've got one person that's out working, one that is either back to work but is still recovering from a birth, or is just home recovering from a birth and being with the baby. We're assuming that there's not the financial resources to have child support and child care in the home, or even like a postpartum doula, which is something that I did this last time. It was amazing. Highly recommend. But not everybody has the financial ability to pay for that. And so imagine where the workplaces are pretty tight, 9 to 5, where there's a lot of stress, like, I don't care if your kids are sick, or I don't care if you have other obligations at home. I need you to get that paper to me by tomorrow. So take that level of stress, amplify it. Then you've got little to no paternity leave, little to very little paternity or maternity leave. And then you have a birthing system and a medical system that sometimes, while it can be valuable and does sometimes save women or babies' lives or both, can also leave people pretty wounded and traumatized. And so then there's all that to work through going home. And so imagine also that because the very different roles that are accentuated, the different roles between the genders are the most highlighted when one of the people in the relationship just had a baby and the other one didn't. So even though that's like a team thing, like the woman has the baby and then her partner goes out and works, like postpartum is a time where the differences in the two roles are very accentuated because what one person is doing is very drastically different than what the other is doing. Whereas a year later, maybe they're both doing the same things again, right? Does that make sense? So postpartum is a time where the differences in the roles between partners is accentuated, and that can actually really be hard when you're used to mostly having a similar, equal role, same role in the partnership, okay? So just think about, if you were just zooming out and looking at that second society, how many factors there are in the person who has the baby and recovers from having the baby, whether she goes back to work or chooses to work or not, how many things that she's working through all at once. And also, like I told you, there's so many appointments for the mom when she's pregnant. There's so many appointments for the baby when she's born or he's born. There's one appointment for a postpartum woman. So when I say society genuinely overlooks the time you're in or the time you were in that is maybe still weighing on you and still lingering in some way, and you never really got the support and the help you needed working through it postpartum, that's what I'm talking about. And so what I'm trying to say is, my personal opinion is that while I totally understand and I get behind your desires for your baby to be good right now, I need you to think about you right now a little bit more. We are programmed from when we're little girls to be altruistic. And I was just reading a study, and I cannot quote it. I'm going to try to in another episode. But I was reading a study, and it's from the book Financial Feminist, which is an incredible book, by the way. And she quotes a study that says that women tend to be more altruistic just naturally. But then on top of that, socially, we are bred or programmed or socialized, okay? We are socialized to nurture others, care for others. And what that does is it supports society's, this is kind of aged now, but 50 years ago, this was the norm. Then, so like one gender is pretty much responsible for nurturing the next generation and running the home front. And then the other gender is sent out to bring in the bacon, right? And to be more individual focused. And the assumption with this system is that the person that's out providing for the family is then going to come home and share those resources with the family very equally and generously, and that the woman would somehow then be compensated for all that work she does at home. But I know a lot of women who work all day as full-time stay-at-home childcare people for their own children and get little to no compensation, little to no access to the financial assets and resources that their partner brings in. And I just think that's so not okay. And that the system is really assuming that the partner of that birthing woman that's nurturing all those babies is going to be very equal and very generous. And that's often not the case. And it's not because those partners don't have a good heart, but it is because the system has really ingrained these two separate roles and not always focused on how to make them work together and to equally value those who are nurturing. There's been sort of an imbalance. Okay, so basically, let's go back to what I was saying about your question. You're like, is this negatively impacting your baby? I said yes and no. I'm going to tell you about the yes in a minute, but I want to finish by saying that, like I said, we're bred to be loyal as women. We're bred to not speak up, not ask questions, and trying not to have needs. Like, just kind of take care of people, do good in school, like be a good girl, whatever. And postpartum is not a time where this is going to serve you or favor you in any way. So what I'm trying to say is your built-in programming and this natural inclination you have to worry about your baby and worry about your partner and worry about the rest of your kids and worry about, your coworkers and if they're being burdened by you being gone and worrying about your boss and is that boss doing okay while you're out. I need you to flip the script and focus more on you. What are your needs? I know this goes against your nature, number one, and also your socialization, but you need to become, for this time, more individualistic. Take back that focus, put it on you. What do you need? You just made a mighty contribution to society, to your family, to your lineage. Huge contribution that everybody's going to get to enjoy for ages. You are now recovering from that amazing contribution. This child of yours is going to pay taxes and contribute greatly to society. You are valuable. What you just did is extremely valuable. The system doesn't reward you for it, but you deserve support. And so I'm going to ask you again, what do you need? Yes, the fun part about this is that you answering my questions is going to help you take care of your mental health, which is going to help your baby and it's going to put at ease the fears you have. I still will give you a specific couple things to do with your baby, but isn't this great? Like if you just focus more on you and take care of your needs, the fears that you have will be eased. Okay. So, yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to say. And I just do want to remind you that even though people close to you, like your family, your extended family, your partner, they love you and they do want to help you and they want you to be healthy and safe. They're humans. They have their own interests as a priority. And they've also been under the influence of a system that they might not be aware of, which has them really focus on providing and, working if, in some situations with your partner. And you can become overlooked even by those who want to care about you, who are trying not to overlook you. So it rests on you, mama. It's your job to have your own back, to express your needs, to identify your needs, and to speak up about those needs. Okay. Now, to answer your question, I will say the number one predictor of a child's development and an infant's development is mom's mental health. Okay. Their adjustment to life, their social adjustment is mom's mental health. And that's for your whole entire motherhood, not just when they're a baby. And like I told you, the system puts a load on us as the stay-at-home parent or the birthing parent that puts us, like our mental health and a really big load on us. And during times like postpartum, it puts a lot of stress on us. And so what's your plan for your mental health? That would be my first thing to consider, because the number one predictor of babies not adjusting well is a mom's mental health. Now we're talking, not like 2 or 3 months necessarily, but we're talking months and months and months and years, which is why I do what I do, so that women don't have to suffer and suffer and suffer. Okay. You might be like, am I ruining my kids or my baby through this? And by the way, that question never ends. I have kids who are ages 9 to 8 months, and I think about this a lot. Like, am I ruining my kids? So, here's the things I tell myself, and I hope these help you. Number one, mental health when it comes to being in a family is something that does impact and influence each other. Your partner's mental health is going to influence yours. Your children's mental health will influence yours greatly, because we're choosing to live together and to kind of cooperate and serve each other. And so it's part of being in a family. And you can't always protect them from that. But what you can do is know how to repair your connection with your child, both now as they're an infant and also as they get older. Okay. And what repairing looks like is knowing not only to say, I'm sorry. And by the way, you can tell your baby that you're sorry, and you can cry about and grieve with your baby about the way you're not able to show up because of how not well you're feeling right now. So not just saying I'm sorry, but repairing a relationship is really saying, I'm sorry I did this behavior. I can see that it hurt you. And then reflecting with self-awareness. An example with that would be like, I think when I said that to you, I really was just feeling insecure inside because, my mom always criticized me for that, or because I was taught this, or one time this kid did this to me. And so there's self-awareness and then a commitment, like, just so you know, I really am going to commit to being more aware of that pattern of mine or that tendency of mine in the future, so that load of my emotional work right there doesn't end up, in a reaction in our interactions, like in our relationship. Okay, so that's repair. And when you know how to repair a relationship, and by the way, you have the baby's whole life, then if you get really good at repairing, then it's not like licensed to be whatever, not care how you show up, but it just is so great to pair that with your humanness, because then you inevitably are going to have times where your mental health fluctuates. You are going to have times where you say the thing that you regret saying, or you do the thing that you regret doing. And knowing how to really repair is so great. So number one, saying sorry, recognizing their pain, having some self-reflection. I think this and this was going on for me. And then making a commitment to what are you going to try to do differently next time? And then the other best thing you can truly do to understand or to really make a change with how you're feeling and to really help your baby or your child to get the best from you and have the best foundation and the best mom's mental health so that they can have the best adjustment is to really understand how you got here in the first place. A lot of people just want to solve, what they're witnessing in themselves. I want to stop doing this behavior. I want to start feeling better. And I love that. And you should. And that's only part one. Part two is, okay, how did this end up happening? And this is something we really go deep into inside of my membership and in my curriculum. So the membership community is Postpartum Freedom. I have a library of curriculum, and then we do live coaching all the time to implement what you're learning, and I teach on these topics. And so things that we go into are like the root causes of anxiety and depression for women. The way that mainstream medical is neglecting and overlooking you postpartum and what you can do about that, how to come out of a freeze response and how to come out of a stress response that's lingering since birth, and how to actually spit out and identify what you need, how to calm your nervous system, how to ask for support, how to get better at receiving support. So these are all things that you're going to need to learn if you want to get to the root of why your mental health took the hit that it did, and also to become resilient for this in the future. And if that's something you're interested in, you see the value in that, then we would love to have you. So you can always just go to LizzieLangston.com/community, which is where you find the membership, or just LizzieLangston.com/work with me. All those links are in the show notes. Mama, you really do have this, and you have so much time to work it out. I remember I chose to have some women at the time I was really I had a lot of community around me, and I had a lot of women that actually took my older toddler so that I could be with my newborn, because I was really struggling to know how to both be recovering from birth, nursing and being a mom for the second time, as well as parenting this toddler and having the emotional capacity for that when I was getting very low sleep. And my husband was gone so much because he was a senior in college and finishing his degree. And there's no shame in delegating. There's no shame in the delegation game, mama. And also, if you want to get to the root, you can come do that work and work with us. We'd love to have you. Okay, I will see you in next week's episode right here on the Postpartum Coach Podcast. The links that you'll need are in the show notes. Don't forget to like and subscribe and leave me a written review if this was helpful to you. I'd love to hear what you think about it. All right, we'll see you next week. Take care.